Welcome to Vinyl Mango, the new video series where I review vinyl records and their album artwork. My name is Brian Capitao, and I'm the editor of DeepFreezeChillin.com, a hip-hop blog about music and culture. But if you're not a hip-hop fan, fret not, my friend, as I will be diving into other genres as well as an attempt to improve my palette while also exposing you to some hip-hop gems that I know of. So, with that out of the way, let's get started. So the first record I actually like to talk about is Broadcast and the focus group investigate witch cults of the radio age. Now, my initial impressions of this were that it was very trippy, very experimental, kind of deals in the realm, of psychedelia. There are a bunch of samples taken from the 1960s and 1970s, for example, the radio age, so to speak. So I was very curious about this record. Exploring more and doing more research, I actually learned that this album deals with the genre of what's called hauntology. Now, hauntology was a concept from the philosopher Jacques Derrida and has to do with the evoking of a cultural past using old technology, old music technology, for example, with, you know, like synthesized sounds and that sort of thing. So, hauntology deals in the realm by bringing the cultural past into the present and really creates this idea of nostalgia. And it's supposed to be kind of almost like the spectral ghosts of the past talking to you, which is, you know, eerie. I would very much liken this idea almost to the visual arts idea of found objects or object trouvé, in the sense that, you know, they're bringing about this idea of the cultural imprint. Now again, hauntology works more by really expressing the idea of nostalgia. So the other thing that I found eerie about this record was actually that the singer, Trish Keenan of Broadcast, actually died in 2011 of pneumonia, supposedly from complications of the swine flu. So you're literally hearing a dead person on the record sometimes, which is, you know, again, adds to the spectral effects, if you will. Trish Keenan was a very well-respected and well-liked musician. After her death, she had tributes to her worldwide from musicians such as Toro y Moi, and, you know, tributes written in various UK outlets such as The Guardian and more. I want to talk about the cover a little bit. You know, on the cover, there's a woman kind of coming at you like this, right? And it looks like she's raising a spell. There's a voodoo doll sort of like at the bottom, and there's comic book lettering actually up top. And it's very like postmodern. And what I actually found out was that Julian House of Ghostbox Records was actually a graphic designer by trade. So it's no surprise that he came up with this very cool and interesting album cover. Final thoughts on the record is I really want to explore more of Broadcast's work in particular. As I said, this was kind of like a group effort, so I don't know if this was necessarily indicative of their work like 100%. Obviously, they were working together and bringing different things out of each other, right? So while this was a cool little project, I'd like to delve deeper into Broadcast's work and kind of dig it a bit more. But just a fun little like Easter egg, if you will. Like I said, there were tributes to Trish Keenan. So one kind of like eerie moment I had was like listening to the record and then seeing that she had recorded just like footage of like what she was seeing at like the Edinburgh Festival, I think it was, and it's like recorded on Super 8. So you're like, I don't know, maybe it's because the lyrics of this particular song, but it was like saying like, feel what I feel, touch what I touch, and here's, you know, Trish Keenan recording literally what she saw and what she felt. It was a cool experience. If you're into like horror records, a horror aesthetic, definitely check this out and check out Hauntology Records. The next record I want to talk a little bit about is Flamagra by Flying Lotus. Now, this was a very interesting album to me because it's it's another concept album. Now, Flylo has described this album, or the concept behind this album, being that there's a fire on a hill, and that was like the concept, is like the music is tied together by this like fire motif, and sort of like what does fire mean, and what is, you know, the good and bad repercussions of fire to the sum of human knowledge. As the beginning of sort of like human invention, fire is the spark of creativity, fire as in burning and passionate love, fire and sacrifice, and fire and the lizard brain. This is all contextualized by the album artwork, by the way, which is incredible, which is amazing. So check out the vinyl album artwork as well. There are references specifically to the psilocybin mushroom, also known as the magic mushroom. At first I thought, am I sure? But then the more I looked at it, the more convinced I was, because there's these, you know, little mushrooms that, you know, you have to look closely. It's a little Easter egg. And then the actual, like, cover, there's people sitting on the mushrooms, like Alice in Wonderland, fantasy, fairies, and whatnot. And, like, there's more than one reference if you look through the whole album cover. But this is also made more clear on side C of the album, which is the psychedelic turn, and it begins with a narration by none other than film director David Lynch, who actually was partly the inspiration for this album, as Flylow first got the concept of the Fire of the Hill when he heard David Lynch tell the story at a party. And it also references, I think, the ghost ship fire in Los Angeles and the California wildfires as well. So Flylow really wanted to use fire as a motif for this album. Final thoughts. If I wasn't a Flylow fan before, I certainly am now. This album made me go through the full spectrum of human emotion. It made me sad at times, it made me pensive, it made me laugh, it made me sad. You know, there's a tribute to Mac Miller, who obviously worked very closely with Brainfeeder, which is Flylow's label, with Thundercat, who also appears on this record. His bass appears throughout the record. He's almost on every record, and he's even singing on one particular track as well. So shout out to the graphic designer, or whoever created the album artwork. You know, on the record you can hear a crackling of a flame to close out the album. I thought that was also a very nice added touch, and I thought that was a good way to close out the record. So overall, I really dug this record. Check out the artwork, check out the album, let me know what you thought on the comments below.